Okay, and welcome to the next video of my Rise to 2400. As you may see, I don't have a game yet. I am trying to arrange a Blitz game with some random person out there who is at least 1900. And I'm using I think the longest possible time control before it becomes a rapid rated game on the Lichess software, because my Blitz is not very good, and also my computer is very slow. As you can see, it's taking me like 4 or 5 seconds to make a move sometimes, just because the mouse is slow. So I'm at a slight disadvantage when it gets to quicker time controls. Anyway, this is a very bread and butter opening. This looks extremely boring. This is why I don't play this in longer games. To me, I don't like playing these openings. They all seem to kind of meld into each other. And then let's play a3. Knight a5 is a slightly annoying move black can do in order to get the bishop pair. And I don't really like trading on e6 usually, so I'm going to do knight d5, put the knight in the center. If they do knight takes, I take with the pawn, they lose a piece. They've done bishop takes. If I play pawn takes, knight d4 maybe. Yeah, knight d4, I don't really see where I'm going. Alright, let's do bishop takes. So we're both getting the bishop pair off each other. I'm getting a slight space advantage on the queen side. That seems to be where my attack is going to be going. Playing it King's Indian style with black trying to shove f5. I'm trying to play c5 usually, or some sort of big attack. Now bishop e3 would not be good because of f4, but then again it would stop them playing e4. I don't really like playing some move just to lose a tempo. Queen c2 stops e4 and it has c5 in its sights. d4 is an interesting break that I can attempt at some stage. Now f4 is not going to be any use for my bishop, so I may as well play bishop b2. a5 is played by them. I should not block the position. I should leave things as they are. Now d4 is always interesting. My knight's not actually that good where it is, so I may as well push it back a little and see if I can improve the knight. If they push f4, I can do knight to e4. If they go e4, then I take it and I win. They've done queen e8. That makes lots of sense. Now f4 is an interesting idea that I can try. It would open up my bishop, but it would then again it would somewhat weaken my king side. c5 would be a lot harder to play. But I do like this space on the king side that I'm suddenly getting over there. So e takes f4 I'm not too upset with. It does improve a lot of pieces. If they don't do anything, I can potentially take on e5, and that would allow me to then push c5. So first things first, let's try and tempt them into playing e takes f4. I'd be a pawn down, but I don't think it's worth a pawn really, because the pawns are doubled, and I have the route of my knight jumping in and maybe going to e6 if they move their e-pawn. If they don't move their e-pawn and they don't defend it enough, I take it 3 times. They have taken. Now with knight d4, it does allow them to play knight to e5. That is something I am aware of. I'm attacking f4 with the rook. I am attempting to win the pawn back at some future time. They've played bishop g5. They're attempting to hold the pawn. I don't think they will after knight e6. I'm attacking 3 pawns, their bishop and the rook as well. It's a brilliant knight placement for my knight. Where to head to next? Knight takes g7 is not the move I'm looking at really. My knight's perfect where it is. I'd never want to lose that knight. I think bishop takes looks good. It wins a pawn. I've still got my rooks connected as well. That's important. Now I'm going to do I think this is what Andrew Soltis calls the bird bind, but I might be wrong in the terminology. Essentially what it is it's cementing a knight on e6. It can never be taken by a piece that's worth less or the same as a knight. And I've traded off knight for bishop. Normally bishops are better in the ending, but in this position I would certainly prefer to have the knight. It's a constant thorn in their side. And then potentially I can just close up the whole queen side, so all the battle is in the center and king side. Just have to make sure I don't get mated or some other unpleasant thing doesn't occur. They also have their rooks tied down. They're essentially 2 rooks down right now. If their C rook moves, I take the C pawn. If their A rook moves, it's not going anywhere. That knight is my my trump card. It's my key piece. I'm planning to play D4 quite soon as well. Possibly next move. I could have played it last move actually, but I just wanted to be sure of my defensive setup. If D4 and they play E4, I take F4. If they don't do anything, I take on E5, and that's about all their options are. Queen H. Interesting. I don't see what the threat is. Possibly I'm being dense. I don't see the threat. So D4. They possibly are trying to go Rook G8, and I'm not going to be too scared of that move. I've always got my queen on C2 guarding the G2 pawn. They might go Rook G8 and then play F3 possibly, because if I take with the rook, then they have stuff. Oh, he's left or she has left the game. They've still got 30 seconds. I'm going to try and play multiple games to show on this video, so I may claim victory just to shorten the length of time we're all just waiting here. But they've taken, okay. Now, I should probably take with my rook. It does slightly weaken my pieces. My 2 rooks are not defended. But I'm attacking 2 pawns at once in a fork. I'm potentially trading queens. I definitely like this position. This looks very, very strong. And Rook G8, I think I can take on F5 with the rook. I don't see salvation for black. If the worst if somehow they were to defend everything, I can play knight takes D4 and be a pawn up. What are they going to do? You can see how the knight is just dominating their bishop. It's controlling all those dark squares, and as it's on the light square blocking the E file, black only has really the G file to use. Their rooks on the 8th rank can't really move anywhere. Again, they're tied down to defending their pawns. That is sometimes called an octopus knight. I think it's worth about the same as a rook sometimes. I'm still thinking. I have more time than them. That's good for me. It means I can think longer. The use of the pin on their F5 pawn, I can also play moves like rook to G4, blocking their G file if I felt like it. Alright, queen over. This move, it does look a little bit annoying because they might have some sort of tactic. I don't believe them though. I don't think they should have a tactic. Yeah, I've got rook takes, and then I've got knight to F4 as a sort of trump, because then when they move the queen, there'll be discovered checks. If they don't move the queen, then it's over. It's game over. If rook to E8, which I am looking at, they don't play it. Now knight to F4. Knight F4. Queen has to stave the bishop, so the queen might go to G7. I don't see a move. So what I'm going to do, double my rooks. I want to keep my knight on E6 because it has F8 and G7 and all these other squares guarded. I'm not really attacking their bishop because if I took it, I'd lose my queen. So they're well aware of that. However, it does look like rook F8 wins. Rook F8 looks very, very strong. Let's play it. Rook takes. I don't know what the technical best move is, but I think that taking their queen is definitely the easiest move. Oh, but they have they have bishop check. Oh dear, didn't see that. All right. Oh no, they can't take me because of queen g7 mate. Whew, that was scary. Dear, I dropped the ball there. I should have probably should have taken the rook to avoid calculation, but I got lucky. And they've let me do the checkmate. So game over. But I had such good pieces that the tactics generally work out for me, and hooray! I gained 1 point. They are offering a rematch. I'll be nice and do one rematch with them. I won't play multiple games after this one though. I'll just do this one. And Sicilians have worked out well for me in the last week or so. I'm going to try Sicilians. They're doing a Grand Prix attack, trying to play knight f3, f5, and get some huge attack on the king side. Generally, the antidote to that is to play d5 at the right moment, which is as early as possible, essentially. Now they can't play f5. We've gone into a sort of French-ish position. And I could go f6, which is a French, but I think I'm going to play the interesting knight h6. What this does is and they've played that move. That looks very, very strange. Play knight f5. This controls d4, so when white plays d4, it could look horrible. Bishop b5 does do something. It attacks my knight. I don't really see where they're going with this, though. I could go knight g3, which would make them go rook to g1. I think I am going to play that. Again, it may not be the best move in terms of improving my pieces, but it is very annoying for them to defend this. Queen b6 lines up with their rook, so it's tempting. But I think bishop e7 also looks good. If they go d4, I can take. But queen b6 also controls d4. Lines up with their rook, attacks their bishop. It's a multi-purpose move, and there's no reason to move my queen off its practically perfect square. I may as well keep it on b6, take and control the center more with another pawn. I've got a very strong centre. Now the knight has managed to evict my queen from that useful square. I want to stay on the dark squares with the queen. They've done c3. What this does is it defends their knight kind of through the pawn. b4 is not really a threat. I need to improve my pieces. Bishop is rubbish. I've got some nasty kind of tactics, things like bishop e2 in the future. And I can win a pawn, I think, with bishop takes d3. They play queen takes. I do queen takes knight, and I think I'm ahead. If they do knight takes c5, they haven't, I would have taken with the bishop hitting their rook. So their piece kind of sacrificed, desperado style, was not working. Now they've attacked my knight. I think I'll centralize with check. And I think you may see, what do you think my plan is now to improve my other pieces? So the plan is, it's maybe a little inaccurate again. I'm not trying to play perfect moves. I'm just trying to play sort of fairly good ones, which in Blitz are usually good enough. c4, this move gives c5 for the bishop. It also sets some various traps. If they play queen e2, for example, knight to g3 with a check, they have not fallen for my trap. Queen d1 looks very strong. Queen d1 does look very strong. I might have to play it. There's also bishop to c5, which could be stronger. I will play bishop c5. It's a skewer on their knight, queen and rooks. They have to block with the knight. Now queen d1 looks even more effective. They have to block with their queens, no other move. And somehow I'm not mating them. I think, anyway. Maybe I am. But I think I have queen d3, which is good enough. If they play knight to e2, I can take their rook without any headaches. It's a simple winning position. If they block with their queen, I have knight g3. So I crush them in this position. They have played knight e2. Now I could do bishop f2, which is probably also winning, but I can't be bothered to work out that line unless it wins. Bishop f2, queen Actually, where does their queen go? Queen d1 is illegal. I thought for a second they could go queen d2, but they can't. They can't go queen d2 because my knight attacks it. Wow, I nearly missed the best move. So when you see a good move, bishop takes rook, look for a better one for a few seconds, and if you can't see it, then you've still got a good move in reserve. Their best move, I expect, is queen takes bishop, which they've played, getting 2 pieces for the queen. Now, simple improvements. Castle king side. My rook is now lined up with their queen, the king, sorry. So now time to extend the range of my rook on f8. They've helped me out a little with taking, so now that gives me a direct line on an open file. Rook d1. Queen c2 makes sense. I think, yeah, queen c2 looks like it makes sense. That, yeah, they can play rook here. Now queen a4 also looks interesting. Yeah, I think it might be a bit offside. I do have reservations, but the reason I did that was to make them defend the a pawn. That gives me the tempo to get in e5 with very good control over the position. And when you're in the lead, you open up the game normally. If they play bishop or knight takes, I play rook e8, getting my last piece into the game, lining up with their king, and they can't escape the mating net or the kill zone with king d1 because my queen is acting as a reserve. Rook takes bishop is the threat. Their knight is pinned, they cannot take me back. Their rook on d2 is paralyzed almost. Bishop is not in the best place, they could move bishop g3 potentially. And rook f1 is also a move. They've played bishop here. I don't really have a win yet. I'm trying to stay active with rook f5, make their bishop go to say h4. Now all I have to do is bring my queen in, which is not that easy actually. I have to play a bit carefully. I may want to stay on the dark square, despite the fact they have a bishop on a dark square. All the light squares are kind of blocked in by my pawns. Queen to a5 looks very sensible here. Then I've got queen b6, queen c7, queen d8. I can't play queen b6, therefore queen c7. Bishop g3 again doesn't work because of all the pins. Interesting move. They've played that. I think, again, just simple moves, coming forwards with the rook, shutting them in. They can't go rook g3, so I'm still trying to paralyze the pieces. And again, swing in, queen h2, infiltration. They've got lots of things being attacked at once. They probably have to go rook f1. And I nearly win with rook takes bishop, then queen g1 check, but they have rook to f1, and I don't see how I'm winning. But nothing is being attacked at the moment. Again, swing across, attempt to paralyze them. They can't do rook takes rook because pawn takes and their knight will drop, reduce the pin. Rook c... oh, they've played that move, okay. And again, a little bit of paralysis is useful. Queen g2. The threat here is rook takes rook, because when their king takes back, their rook on f1 will no longer be guarded. It also gives me the option, if they play rook g1, I've got... I think I still have maybe... well, rook takes rook, I lose the queen actually, but I still win anyway. But I have queen f3 as well. I've just got so many useful moves, improving my pieces, bringing them closer to the white king and coordinating better and better. White slowly getting pushed into this horrible position where they're basically in Zugzwang. Essentially, if they move anything, they weaken their position. So pawn moves are basically the order of the day, and that's what they've done. There may be a win, but I don't see it. So rook takes rook is the simple move, winning 5 points of material, and I'm also winning a piece. So I thought that was a nice game. I'm pressing new game, that keeps the time control. That would have been good at 2400. player as Pox was there, but it was only a casual rated game, and it was 5 minutes flat. I think I need these increments. I need every second. I've got another 1900. Alright. Maybe it'll be a 3-game video with me gaining like 1 point per win. I put 1900 exactly as the minimum rated player. There's no point really watching me beat 1700s or 1300s in a match. Or losing and then being embarrassed. And here I'm going to try playing a kind of a scotch with a twist. The bishop e7 move's not the move I'm used to. I used to do the scotch. Bishop c4 in the line of the scotch gambit. I'm trying to prove that black's bishop e7 is actually a bit useless. Their only really active place for their c8 bishop is h3, so there is g4. So the idea of playing h3 is tempting. f3 is also a move, almost going into a sort of Sicilian type line. Actually, no, I want to go h3. I don't want to commit my f pawn yet. I may play f4 in the future, gaining space. It also stopped knight g4 because I was thinking about bishop to e3. But yeah, knight g4 is annoying, attacking the bishop, trying to get the bishop pair off me. Knight to e5, this is quite a common theme. And the big choice is, where do I put my bishop? I don't actually like b3 in these positions because of c5 attacking my knight, and when I move it, then c4 is annoying. I'm actually going to play bishop e2. The idea behind this is that my bishop is still very flexible. It can move to plenty of squares on either diagonal, and f4 is going to now come with tempo on their knight. When they move back to, say, g6, I can then come back to c4 with the bishop at a future time. Black can often go knight g6 here to avoid f4 coming with an attack on the knight, giving them more options and keeping things flexible and open. So if they go knight g6, I may not play f4, I may go bishop e3, but they've played c5. This move weakens their d file, essentially. Knight f5 is tempting. It does get the bishop pair, I think. So knight f5, they could do knight takes e4, but that doesn't work. I take their bishop with check, then take their free knight. They could do bishop takes knight, e takes f5, then they can just play d5 and they're getting a solid position. And knight f3 feels a little bit wrong because of the fact I can't play f4. So I'm going to play knight to b3. Knight b5 I didn't like either because of a6 attacking my knight and chasing me all over the place. Knight b3 also isn't exactly my favourite move. But again, I can be flexible with my pieces. My knight can always come round to f3 from b3 by going via d2. They have done a6. They're trying to get a big attack with b5. I'm not terribly upset with this though. f4. I'm trying to gain space on the king side using my extra space to cramp them. My e pawn is a lot better than their central pawn on d6, and I may want to go bishop f3 to have a nice diagonal to their rook, discouraging the move b5, which would then limit their queenside play. Bishop c4 at first looks quite nice, lining up with their king, but this b5 move is so annoying. And a4 is quite nice, but it weakens some of my squares, and I don't think I'm ever going to deploy the rook to the a file. So b5 is what they're planning. Bishop e3 does look like the best move, but I am going to play bishop f3. This, again, it's just an aim of discouragement. Now, knight to d5 is quite nice, which would go after their queen. I think first, though, I should develop. And I've also got a slight weakness on that diagonal to my king. Bishop e3 does block off any weakness on that diagonal. Queen c7, my guess for that is to play rook d8, which would take pieces away from their king side and settle on the centre and king and queen side. Again, that's where black wants to go. Also, it defends their knight, so b5 may be an option here. Rook e8 was played. So they're attempting to use the e-file. I don't think that's too worrisome. I am now going to play a4 because they have managed to get this b5 move to be playable next turn. This a4 slow down their queenside play. Now, can you guess what I'm planning to do with the queen and the a-rook? My plan could have changed, but what it was to go queen e1 and then come up to say g3 and then play rook d1, going in the centre and kingside. Bishop e6, it does potentially take my knight on the b3 square, but those kind of positions I'm happy with. I'm not terribly upset with that. I do get the bishop pair though with knight d5. It's a blocked centre, but it does block the queen side more than the king side. Therefore, if I'm slowing down all their queenside play, this can't be too bad. They can't do knight takes because of e takes forking their bishop and knight. So they have to do bishop takes or allow me to play moves like knight b6 or knight takes e7. They have taken me. I do have to be a little bit concerned about e3 bishop. It's not guarded. Knight there. It attacks d5, but d5 is fully defended. c3 appears to trap a knight. Oh, but then they have d3. Sorry, they have c4 and then knight d3. But I'm going to say that c3 is still good. If ever they play things like bishop f8, trying to line up with my bishop, I can do things like rook e1 or bishop f2. So the threat is only a slight delay to my overall plan. So yeah, c4 I think is their only move to allow knight d3 next turn. And if they go c4, I could take their pawn. They have played bishop f8, so that means I should probably just save my bishop with a defense. Bishop f2. They're still in the same situation they were in just now. My bishop's actually more flexible on f2. It can go to g3 or h4. This may have helped me more than it helped black. Although they do guard more their king side this way. Bishop wasn't doing a lot on e7 either, so our bishops have improved. Anyway, if they don't play c4, I win their knight. If they do play c4, I could take their knight, they take me, then I take on b3. But my extra pawn would be a doubled b pawn. I'm not sure how useful that is. So my plan overall is to play... Oh, okay. If they go on c4, I was going to go knight c1, then they go knight d3, and I take their knight on d3 with my knight. And I win their pawn that would come to d3. So I'd have an extra pawn on the c-file. Instead, though, they've given me a piece, which is very generous. Pre-move capturing. I'm down to 2.5 minutes. They're down to 1 minute. They've played rook to e2. So rook e1 is a plan. I can't really defend the b pawn unless I play something silly. So let's play something silly. Let's do knight d2. I don't really want to give away material for nothing in these positions, and it is already one pawn for a piece. Ooh, okay, they've done queen there. That's not the move I would have done. So the move b4 is interesting. What this does is it sets up a very simple tactic, where if they fall for my trick and they play c takes b4, I take their queen with the bishop. I'm not expecting them to fall for it though. It's a way of defending my pawn, which does pressurize their queen side. Instead of trying to block everything up, because I'm ahead, I can now try to pressure them and keep the attack going. I don't want to lose momentum. And then, play really defensive and let them get counterplay, and then have to maybe sack something or give something up, and then be in a difficult position. I just want to play simple and trade all the pieces. Go into a winning ending, a piece up, and win. Okay, so the rooks have traded. That's my goal. And keep all the Ideally keep all the pawns, although queen b6 does win a pawn. Oh, queen c1. This is what I was talking about with counterplay. I don't see a way for me to have like an ironclad grip on the position, but I think queen e4 should be sufficient to win. I'm planning things like king h2, getting out the pin, and then I'll sort out something. They've played pawn d5. They're still they're going bishop takes b4. So an idea. So here, nice little sneaky move, queen b1. Again, I want to kill all the counterplay, try and trade pieces. If I'd gone queen to say e2, bishop takes b4, and I'm losing 2 pieces for the 2 pawns to the piece. So knight to f3. I am losing 1 pawn, but again, I'm trying to activate the pieces. So yeah, I'm definitely losing the f pawn. I was going to lose the b pawn anyway. So this way, bishop f2, and then I was looking at bishop c5. Bishop c5 might be best though. Yeah, let's do bishop c5. I am going to lose another pawn, but again, I have an out here. I've got a way to play. Also, we're both down to very low on time. The idea I have is that if they take my bishop and I take back, I then hit their b7 pawn with the queen. So yeah, they're going to check me. I'm going to play. Actually, I have to be a little bit careful here. King h1 looks like the safest move, limiting a lot of the checks. There's also the bonus of having a checkmate threat after I take on b7. I've got queen b8 with amazing idea. They're down to a minute. They've got queen c1. Knight g1 is definitely playable, but that would be rather passive. Although, maybe it's best. What I'm thinking though is actually king h2. That keeps my knight in a good position. So here, now queen f4 actually blunders, I want to say, because of the shocking g3, which does lose my knight, but again I have the mate threat. They can't afford to take the knight. It also gains a tempo on their queen. I believe queen d6 is the only valid option. I want to say queen d6. And then queen a8, they have to go queen f8 with a block. They've resigned. I wasn't actually sure if I should trade queens or take the a pawn afterwards, or d pawn. Anyway, I'm not going to take a rematch with them. How long is the video so far? Video has been 33 minutes. That's quite a long time. And I hardly gained any points. I'll try playing one more game. Hopefully I get somebody who is above 1950 for a rating. If they're not, then fine. I'll give it another 20 seconds or so. If I don't have anyone to play, I'll stop the video and you'll be able to see me play more Blitz next time. There is one person who wants to play the lowest possible rapid play rated game, 5 minutes plus 5 seconds a move. So that's where the cutoff is. It's 5 minutes each. 4 seconds is Blitz, and then 5 seconds is rapid. All right, we've got a 2,000 plus. That's good enough to show. E4 again. Let's stick with Sicilian for a while until I get busted up with it. E6. I'm not going to play exactly the same moves every time and play a kind of Owen's defense. I can transpose it to a kind of English setup actually with G6. The idea of playing a kind of English Botvinnik except as black with a Finkesso. Ooh, I nearly played Bishop G7. That would have been awful. So I'm setting up my system with knight. Oh yeah, I missed that. That's another reason not to do double Finkessos sometimes. Alright, okay, I've started off pretty badly, but let's hope I can turn this around. I'm planning bishop g7 because I have to get rid of that annoying bishop. Although I do have knight knight somewhere. If I'm really in trouble, no, bishop g7. It looks like a sensible move. Bishop takes, I think, will be played. Then rook takes. And surprisingly, I've had positions like this where I seem to actually get out of it okay. Okay, they played bishop over there. I can't castle. That doesn't mean I want to though. All right, h6. Let's kick the bishop away. See where he goes. All right, and knight c6. I've managed to develop all my pieces, perhaps not in the ideal way. Time to open the center when I've got better development. This may be wrong because I have not yet castled, but my idea is if they castle to develop their pieces, I'll take on e4. Okay, they're wise to it. I was going to trade queens where castling is no longer so bad. d4 would close things up nicely. d4, knight takes, d4, yeah, let's do d4. So I'm attempting to close the center with some success, I hope. They do always have queen a4 check, though, so I have to be careful of queen a4 checks. They have done bishop over. Alright, time to block the center completely and hope to survive this. I'm planning to actually leave my king in the center for a while, and then at the right moment maybe push my king side. Queen d7 looks innocuous right now. It also potentially gives me queenside castling options. It hits h3, so it stops bishop h3. f5 is guarded as well, so I have that move. And maybe this rook g8 plan was not the worst ever. Also, it's a blitz game, so blitz games you can get away with this rubbish. Knight c4 for white. I don't really want to go b5 because even though it gains time and they have to play knight back to a3, I'll have weakened my pawns. They're perfectly, positioned right now. They're all defending each other. And maybe rook d8 is better than castling queenside. They have played c4. Perfect. Okay, so it's a closed up center. That's exactly what I want. Now, do I want to open the king side? f5, pawn takes, g takes, increasing my control. Yeah, let's do it. f5. And castling queenside may well be my next move after they capture. G takes may not be the right move again, but I'm increasing the power of my rook. And e4 is the move I want to play a lot. Rook lining up with my king. Time to castle, get my king out of the way. I'm defending e5 just enough. So my style is not usually to overprotect, it's to have the minimum necessary to guard all my pieces and just about hold up my position, then start to push forwards. It's obviously a bit aggressive and it's a bit dangerous sometimes, but it can yield great results because all your pieces will be active doing things. White's pieces at the moment are not greatly coordinated. They're trying queen c1 to go bishop takes on h6. Not even sure I want to keep the pawn. But, I mean, I don't need to sort of make the situation worse. I can go rook h8 if I need to. Queen e6 looks pretty good, though. Yeah, let's do queen e6. Luckily, my d4 pawn's been guarded lots of times. There's no fork. I'm defending e5 a lot more times. e4 is the plan I'm going for. But if I do it straight away, I might encounter problems with my pawn being pinned. I'm actually going to go queen somewhere else, I think, first. Or my knight. My knight's also not very good. f4's a move, but I don't really like it. Queen f6, though, doesn't actually help me play e4. Okay, so my d rook isn't doing anything. Yeah, my d rook's awful. So rook d e8. Line up with the e pawn, try to do stuff. Wow, okay, that is That is not what I was expecting. Knight takes. Bishop takes, check. Okay, king takes. Is the idea to go f4? That's what I'm thinking. But if they go f4, I have knight f3. That's a radical solution to the problem of white. He seemed to, or she seemed to, want to kind of break through, but my pieces were pretty good. And they've left the game probably in disgust at how I survived. I know I haven't done so for the others, but because this will be the last video, I'm going to claim victory. Because they're obviously losing. This will be, sorry, last game on the video, I should say. I will analyse this match. I was obviously losing completely earlier on. I'll request computer analysis just to make sure. It's only a 21 move game, so it should take a few seconds to analyse the match from the beginning. And I mean, obviously I blundered hugely. This is why Blitz games are not quite as high quality as anyone knows. The longer the time control, better the play. G6 was terrible, I think, in retrospect. It says inaccurate, but I would say more of a mistake than inaccurate. Here, I think knight to e7 is a blunder. I probably have to go bishop e7, or break my favourite rule and just play f6 and force the bishop back, and then bishop g7, knight e7, and play f5 in the future. Either way, this is looking terrible. Knight to e7 was an inaccuracy. Again, I would maybe go... I'd go a bit more strong than that in my condemnation of the move. Bishop f6, a great infiltration move, prevents me castling. Rook g8 is basically forced. And yeah, pawn c3 maybe isn't the most accurate and critical way to address my weaknesses, but it seems to be okay. I don't see why it would be bad. And yeah, bishop g5 maybe isn't the best move. It allows me this fianchettoed bishop. I think they should have traded. Then I have a terrible rook on g7 that's fianchettoed and can't really do anything. And I either have to walk my king into h8 to effectively castle by hand, or I have to kind of maneuver my pieces around a lot and be a lot worse here. So bishop g5 was kind of losing the thread a little, although I still can't castle, as you know. So h6 was an attempt to get the bishop pair or to force white to make a concession. Then knight a3 is actually a move I quite like. It's developing the knight in a slightly unorthodox fashion, but the thing is, it leaves white's options open. With knight d2, it was probably going to go to c4 anyway. This allows the same idea, but also queen d2 is an option, and the other knight to d2 could be useful to open up the fianchettoed g2 bishop. My d5 seems okay. Queen c2 apparently isn't that good. I thought it was solid. Castles is apparently better for white, but I was then going to take the pawn, and so actually, sorry, going back one move. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, okay, maybe a computer will say, you know, white's doing fine here, but pawn takes. Then if white takes back with the pawn, I can trade the queens, and yeah, I'm still worse. But with the queens off, a lot of my advantage has been mitigated. A lot of it's just theoretical, really. So I think this queen c2 is a human move, and to me it makes a lot of sense. d4 trying to close up the position. Apparently it's not the best move, but again, human level, it makes a lot of sense. And e5 is a huge blunder, apparently. Why is that a huge blunder? g5 is better, according to the computer, and then maybe going g4, gaining space. I can appreciate that being an alternative, and maybe I go e5 or f5 later. So yeah, maybe I did make an inaccuracy with e5, but again, the idea is to close up the centre, and then my uncastled king is actually quite safe. I definitely think c4 is a blunder from white. Positionally, strategically, it's a blunder because they want to open the centre to get at my king, and I want to close the centre, so white's helping me out. Then f5 I think was quite good, and it seems to be a top move. G takes also good, opening up my rook. Rook fe1, and castles seems to be good. Yeah, I didn't like queen c1 as much. I thought white disconnecting their rooks was potentially a mistake. I think white's main idea actually might be to go b4 at some point and try to blast apart the queen side, going for my king. And it's almost like an English opening or a sort of reversed Benoni type structure. or a King's Indian defence. It's one of those kind of openings. And in a lot of those, White's attack on the queen side can be very effective. Yeah, Queen C1 felt wrong. And yeah, Knight G6 is the move I was looking at. It does feel right, because it improves all my pieces. And doesn't really care too much about the pawn. Because if takes, I'm turning a computer on now, I expect black's still good. Yeah, Knight B4 is crushing because of the Knight D3 attack. If white plays, say, Rook D1, defending themselves, that allows E4 breaking through. And yeah, white's extra pawn on the H file is worth practically nothing. My centre is so strong that white's pieces are all getting forced back. And my advantage must be huge. -3. May go even higher the longer the computer looks at it. Queen E6 then wasn't the right idea. It was more of a defensive move. It was a reactionary move as opposed to a sort of proactive move. Then yeah, Rook E8. I did feel like that might have been a bit slow. Apparently what was my best move? E4 was actually best. I was a bit nervous about my king and queen being lined up on a diagonal line and bishop h3 being possible, but also the fact that the queen, was lined up with the rook. So my idea was to increase the power of e4. It all worked out though, because it's just a huge blunder. And again, after knight takes e5, it says just underneath b4 is best. So the idea of b4 is, again, it's showing itself in this opening. I will have to probably take it, otherwise white could play things like b5 or taking, getting loads of space. Then we trade some pieces, but white now has a pull on the queen side. They've got c5 coming up, and maybe their knight on f3 could move in the future with a tempo on taking on d4, for example, which would collapse my centre and increase the power of their pieces. So the line the computer gives is e4, white sacking a piece, but not really a sack because my queen was lined up with their rook. Then giving me a central killer pawns, and kind of playing around it with knight h6 and then pushing c5. It looks like an incredibly complicated position where maybe I'm just about surviving with blocking up the queen side, but it's definitely better for white than the game. Knight takes e5 was awful. Knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, and then just to show if you weren't able to follow along with what I was saying, f4 attacking my knight so that I'm pinned. I have a discovered attack. Pins and discovered attacks go well together. Then it's checks, they have to move the king, and I can capture the offending rook, which is attacking the queen. Now that I'm winning, I can play pretty easy moves like trading pieces, and again just keep trading until I reach a winning ending, a rook up, and that'll be all she wrote. So that was the final game. Hope you've enjoyed this video on my Blitz performances. I've gained about like 6 points, I think, from from 4 games, and hopefully I'll continue to rise all the way to the 2400 goal. Alright, I'll see you next time. Bye.